Hello. In this video, we will go over the basic procedures of a Model United Nations Conference and demonstrate them. The issue we are demonstrating is on the question of peace and stability in the South China Sea. A Model United Nations Conference consists of the chair, who guides the conference through its correct procedure and ensures the order of the conference, the co-chair, who assists the chair, a delegate from each of the member states attending the conference, and the administrative staff, who keep the security, attend to the needs of the conference, and also serve as notepasses, which occur during debates on resolutions. There are usually 2 issues in each committee in which delegates will prepare for their resolutions and opening speeches beforehand, with the interests of the country they have in mind.
The chair will now start roll call. Delegates being called, please raise your placard high and say, present and voting. China.
Present and voting.
Japan. Present and voting. Russia.
Present and voting.
USA.
Present and voting.
Delegates are then called by the chair, a certain number at a time, to the podium where they will give their opening speeches, which is limited to 1 minute. When, for example, all 3 delegates have finished their opening speeches, the chair will ask the delegates if there are any rights of reply.
We will now move to opening speech. When the chair calls your delegation, please come to the podium and give your speech. China.
Respected chairs, fellow delegates, since the issue of South China Sea has been a problem for a long time, China expects the United Nations to face the problem immediately. The rights of the islands in the South China Sea has been complicated for decades. The dispute of the member states around the South China Sea never ends. The reason why the states dispute the right of the island is inseparable from the natural resources of the South China Sea. China strongly calls for the United Nations to return the rights of the islands in the South China Sea since they have been the territory of China from centuries before. Thank you.
The delegate has finished his opening speech. Are there any rights of reply? The delegate of Russia not been recognized.
The delegate of Russia strongly agree with China and are looking forward to discuss about the issue during the
The delegate of China, you may have the seat.
The opening speech is purely a time for delegates to express their stance and their opinions on the issues in question. Any rights of reply given at this point will purely be statements of response, whether agreeing or disagreeing with the delegate. Also, delegates must refer to each other, for example, as the delegate of China, or she, or he. Delegates also may not use first-person expressions while referring to themselves. Once the opening speeches have been given, the chair will move on to lobbying time. This is when delegates are free to walk around the conference room and talk to fellow delegates about the issues. As the delegates talk to each other, at least 2 different or opposing sides will be formed. These separate groups will then work together to compose a resolution in which they think best benefits the issue. A main submitter and main co-submitter will be selected for the finished resolution, which will both play an important part for the debate. When the resolution is finished, the chair reviews it, and after their approval, the resolution is then given to the approval panel, where a teacher will check for minor mistakes, such as grammar problems, or other parts that don't make sense. Also, a resolution should never exceed 2 pages long.
The procedure will now move to lobbying time. Delegates may leave your seat.
When all resolutions are approved, the conference is then moved on to debate time. This is the most important part of the conference since the resolutions are finally debated and voted on. One resolution is considered at a time, and for the resolution in debate, the main submitter is called by the chair to the podium to read out the resolution that has been submitted.
We will now start from Resolution A. The main submitter of Resolution A may now read the resolution.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates. Conflict in the South China Sea has already been a problem for decades, and the main reason due to the fact is that the rise of violence in the South China Sea are mostly unsettled, and many states are trying to take over the land which doesn't. The questions of peace and stability in the South China Sea. Clause 1 urges to limit every member state's exploitation right of natural resources of the South China Sea. Clause 2 calls upon United Nations Development Program (UNDP) to make the regulations which can control the amount of resource exploitation from each member state. Clause 3 requests every member state to research and develop the renewable resources in the open ocean area by cooperating with other member states. Clause 4 urges all member states in the South China Sea to sign an assignment to clarify the border and sovereignty in the South China Sea.
The chair then sets the debate time for the resolutions and directs the main submitter to give his or her speech. The main submitter then focuses on the issue and elaborates on the resolution. When the speech is finished, the chair will ask if the delegate is open to any points of information, which means questions that will be given by the delegates to the speaker. At this point, the main submitter may say any and all, which means they accept all questions asked, any and all pertaining to the speech, meaning they only accept questions regarding what was mentioned in the speech. None, which means they only want to give their speech and then return to their seat, or the certain number that they wish to.
The debate time is now open. The chair will now set debate time 10 minutes for and 10 minutes against. Delegates may start.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates. Conflict in the South China Sea has already been a problem for decades, and the main reason due to the fact is that the rise of islands in the South China Sea are mostly unsettled, and many states are trying to take over the land which doesn't belong to them. The delegate of Russia would like to draw the House's attention to Clause 4, urges all member states in the South China Sea to sign an assignment to clarify the border and sovereignty in the South China Sea. The delegate believes that all member states must clarify the border and reach an agreement in order to prevent the argument and any unnecessary war from happening. Clauses 1 and 2 is basically focused on limiting the use of resources in the South China Sea. The delegate believes that being environmentally friendly is the best policy nowadays. Overusing any kind of resources might destroy the area or even the whole world. In conclusion, to set up a limit is the best way to prevent a catastrophe from happening. Thank you.
Is the delegate open to points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself to any and all.
The chair then asks delegates if they want to give any points of information. Delegates who want to ask questions are to raise their hands. The chair then asks delegates if they want to give any points of information. Delegates who want to ask questions are to raise their placards and wait to be recognized, which will give them permission to stand up and give their point of information. While delegates are directing their question to the speaker, they must also refrain from using first person. When the question is asked, the speaker must reply, and if the delegate wishes to ask a further question on the matter, he or she must ask the chair for a follow-up. The chair may grant or deny, but an extent of only one follow-up is allowed.
Is the delegate open to points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate have opened herself to any and all points of information. Are there in the House? The delegate of USA, you have been recognized.
The delegate of USA would like to ask the delegate of Russia that, in Clause 3, what does the word the open ocean mean?
That means the ocean that no member state can claim the right on it.
Follow.
Granted.
Does it include the South China Sea?
Yes, it does.
When all points of information for the current speaker are given, the chair will ask if the speaker is willing to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate. The speaker then can choose to return to their seat and let the chair ask for any other speeches, or pass the floor to another delegate. No matter which is chosen, the next delegate approaches the podium and, like the first person, gives their speech which clearly states their stance on the resolution and if they are for or against the resolution.
Will the delegate yield the floor to another delegate or back to the chair?
Back to the chair.
Note passing is also a critical part of the conference. Delegates are given notepads at the start of the conference and may communicate to other delegates through note form during debate. They have to, on the paper, clearly state who the note is to and from, and raise their hand with the note to pass on to the admin staff. The admin staffs are to read the contents of the note and pass it to the delegate. During this process, delegates may also submit amendments for the resolutions to the chair. After the current speaker at the podium is finished, the delegate raises their placards and informs of the amendment. The time has elapsed, the chair will then move on to voting procedure. Voting procedure consists of 3 different choices. Delegates may raise their placards when the chair asks for, against, or abstaining, meaning they give up on their vote. The voting procedures for resolutions are also the same. When voting occurs, the chair will ask for admin staff to secure the doors, and no laptops are allowed during this time.
Time for debating on this amendment has now elapsed. Secretary, please secure the door. All notes passing is out of order. Those who are in favor of this amendment, please raise your placards. Against? Abstain?
During the process of debating, there may be various types of motions and points. For example, a delegate might say, "Motion to move to previous questions," usually during the process of debating or an amendment. If the chair asks for any speeches against the amendment and none of the delegates raise their placard, a delegate will state the motion, and if other delegates follow up by saying second, the chair will then proceed into the next procedure of debating, which will be voting. If any delegate says objection, then the process of debating against the amendment is continued. Points may include points of order, which is regarding the peace of the conference, point of personal privilege, which may include the audibility of the current speaker, or point of parliamentary inquiry, which delegates may say when they are worried that the procedure of the conference is not right. The chair will ask the delegate to raise and state their point if this happens. All of these points of information may be spoken at any time during the conference, and delegates do not have to raise their placards and wait for the chair's consent. Also, during the conference, delegates may use laptops for lobbying or typing up resolutions. However, any electronic devices are not allowed to bring up to the podium or during the voting procedure. I hope so, after this demo, you have a better idea of what a typical MUN conference is like. These